Welcome to the fourth panel session of today's Fertility Forum 2021. If you've joined us just specifically for this session about fertility travel and cross-border reproductive care, just a reminder that if you want to post a question to a member of the panel, you can do so in the Q&A or put it in the chat. We'll pick it up in the chat, I imagine. And so just to kick off, I'd like to introduce our four contributors. We have a truly international audience for fertility travel, as should be the case. Dimitris from Redia, Eleonora from Repo Clinic, Juliet, all travelled all the way from Barbados today for this event. Matej from Fuchsia Life. What I've asked each panelist to do is just to kick off with 5 minutes or so each. And I've asked them to just describe how the pandemic was for them and maybe what's changed for them, what they do within the IVF and fertility sector, and then their kind of view of the future of fertility travel post-COVID. So Dimitris, you get to go first. So over to you.
Hello. Hi, Keith, and it's an honor to be in the Fertility Forum 2021. It has been a difficult period, to be honest, for me, like everybody else. The pandemic for me was to discover my house and my neighborhoods, since before that I had been traveling almost all the time, and it was an opportunity for me to slow down personally. Now, regarding what I do, I'm the founder and CEO of Redia IVF. It used to be Redia Limited, a UK company. Now we are a group of global group of companies. We have Redia FIV in Spain, Redia Greece in Greece, Redia IVF LLP in India, and Redia LLC in the US. So we are the leading provider of refund guarantee IVF programs in Europe, and we're now expanding into India and the US, as you can imagine from the companies I just mentioned. We are a third-party provider, so we have been working in fertility for almost 10 years now. Initially in fertility clinics themselves, and then I started my own company. And we partner with fertility clinics globally to offer refund guarantee programs to patients. So patient care and success rates of clinics are major important for us. So yeah, Keith, this is just a brief introduction of what we are doing and where we are.
Thank you, Dimitris. So over to Eleonora, who's in Barcelona. Eleonora, welcome.
Hello. Hi. It's Eleonora from Repo Clinic in Barcelona. I'm the sales manager. From the personal point of view, the most difficult part during COVID was the impossibility to travel. I'm Italian, so the impossibility to reach my family. And about Repo Clinic, it was not so easy. The clinic in Spain were closed during 3 months, so it was an uncertain period. And what we tried to do is to help patients that were closed in their homes with webinars, try to find out the positive aspects during this unsure period. So we started to do webinars, and all the staff was involved in webinars and also in talks in our social medias. So we try to help patients to answer to all the questions they may have. And the second thing was to improve online consultation. Also, what's not so easy, because we need to change all the protocol. We need to install in the homes of our staff the program, so they could work from their home. It took more or less 1 or 2 days to arrange to establish protocols. But we are very proud of the staff, because we learned together, we fight together during this period, and now we are going on together. So it was not so easy, it was a challenge. But from Roblo Clinic, we try to help patients to find out the positive aspect with webinars, with also we offer an holistic approach. So we did talks with fertility coaches, acupuncturists, nutritionists. So I think this was the most important thing, to remain, to stay with the patients, also if they were blocked and it was forbidden to travel.
Thank you, Eleanor. Let's move to Juliet in Barbados.
Good morning, Kate. How are you?
Excellent. We want to see the picture of the beach in the background.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to, is my video's up there. So no, I'm afraid I can't quite show you the beach, but it's nice to be here all the way from across the pond, as I say. So I think you asked us to start with what changed for us personally, our new pastimes or skills. And I think back to the pandemic, and I think of a lot of gardening, and I also then think of, my daughter was into Harry Potter at the time, and I thought the best thing I could do would be reading it as well, because I wasn't sure a 9-year-old should run through all 7 Harry Potters, and I did manage to read them, having never read them when they first came out. But all jokes apart, from the personal memories of the pandemic for the clinic, and I'll share with you a little bit about our clinic in a second, I think we did use it positively and constructively. We actually moved to become fully electronic medical records during that time, which is always a feat for any clinic that's been around for 20 years. So at least could see the positive of the pandemic in that aspect. But I think a little bit about myself. I'm the medical director and co-founder of Barbados Fertility Centre, and which started 20 years ago nearly. And as the name suggests, it's located here in the island of Barbados in the Caribbean. We're a JCI accredited facility, and 90% of our patients travel to us. They're not resident in Barbados, and they come from very far afield, the USA, Europe, Hong Kong, South Africa, even Australia at times. Clearly, with our patient demographic, the impact of COVID initially was huge. And from April to June 2020, we basically pulled cycles. We pulled them back in March when we could see what was about to happen. We didn't want our patients starting their medications and then not being able to get on the plane to come. And, we did that ahead of the government deciding to lock down the island. And when they did restart, we restarted just with local patients in June of 2020, having, like the others, written protocols and established a safety process for the staff and within the facility. During this enforced downtime, we did continue new patient consults and reviews. For us, these have always been done by phone. So this new buzzword of telehealth was nothing new to us. This was how we did things anyway. When interestingly, we found our patients at that time possibly were more available because they were working remotely themselves, and perhaps they made more time. We didn't see any drop in our new patient contacts during that time of global lockdown effectively. When the borders reopened, we with entry testing and quarantine initially, and then that's now since gone for vaccinated travelers, we basically saw the international component increase to fairly quickly becoming, from about August last year, about 50% of what we would have been doing before. And that slowly continued to steadily increase. And really since about July or August this year, we've been back at full throttle of the numbers of patients traveling to and from that we would have had in 2019. And, you know, and I think the biggest thing that you saw in the pandemic was an incredible demonstration of patients are so resilient, and the fact that they've put up with changing regulations, entry quarantines, COVID tests. And, you know, for us ourselves, we had to be very ready with, as a team, to deal with the curveballs. What if someone's flight got cancelled? What if, you know, what if someone, you know, was a slight delay in them getting their COVID test? How did we handle that as clinicians? So it certainly was an interesting time that I will dutifully look forward to being on the other side of.
I'm sure you will. Matt Edge, we come to you. Welcome.
Good. So my name is Maciej Stejskal. I'm the director of Future Life Group, which is now in 8 countries and has 42 centers. So Future Life operates centers in 8 countries under their brand. So you might know Repromed, Gennet in Czech Republic, Reprofit, Ovumia in Finland. So we have many clinics, and the COVID impact was very positive to us. I have to say that if we look at the situation first, we thought it will hurt us a lot, because we also have a lot of international patients coming to Czech Republic for donation. And when we had to close our clinic in March 2020, it looked very serious. But then we see what can a network like ours offer to the patients. So we immediately adopt. We have been able to see patients in UK, in Ireland, because we have clinics there. We changed immediately our operations. So a lot of went online. A lot of doctors start to use it finally. So it was good that before doctors are quite traditional, and they were a little bit reluctant to do online consultations, but that has stopped. And I think all of the patients also, or not all, but a lot of patients really welcome this, because they can schedule the consultation at a time which they preferred. So online was a good thing for us. Also, we have been able to freeze sperm for our patients in case there have been travel restriction. We send them to our other clinics. So that has been a good sign of how our clinics can operate. And since then, it is amazing how fast after the COVID, the patients came back to our clinics. And what lasts is we are now moving cells, not the patients. If we can, we will be able to ship the gametes around Europe using our own shipper, which we have in our group. So it makes it much more easier for the patients to have treatment now, because if they start in Ireland, then they finish in Prague or other way around. And it's easier now, especially when we expect the travel regulations will be still in the future. Some of the regulations will remain. So generally, I think for our group and for our patients, it has been a challenge. And I hope that we have learned from it and that it brings something positive also.
Thank you, Matej. Just bring all the panelists back into the discussion. We have about 30 minutes to take some questions, either from the audience or just some general comments on fertility travel. Jade, if you could all bring them all back in together. Juliet, you say your business is kind of back to where it was prior to COVID?
Yeah, so I mean, really these last couple of months, and certainly the months ahead, we are just as busy as we would have been before the pandemic in terms of the number of cycles per month. You know, I think for a clinic that very much is 90% non-residents, you know, it was a journey back, but it was a positive journey back, and to a level, you know, to share Matej is, you know, I think that yes, we did find that gametes shipped around the world a little bit easier, in that there were more and more that maybe the sperm came in by shipper rather than you know, than the person traveling at one point.
And have you had to rethink your strategy in terms of your source markets? There was a Spanish clinic in one of the earlier sessions that said, well, the UK market disappeared and it was our main market. So we had to radically rethink, the immediate future, where we were going to source patients from. And their source markets changed to kind of offset what they'd lost. So were you kind of dumping the USA and, because of the travel restrictions there, how did you think through the kind of the markets actually, you were going to target?
We did at the time, obviously know where our patients could come from. So there were certain areas where, at one point we did have that traffic light type of system of entry and what that meant. So we obviously reacted to that, but our number one destination is the USA. And to be honest, they were very able to travel to us. Once our borders physically opened, they could travel to us. And in a weird way, because of the fact that so many of our patients were working remotely, for the Americans, they're normally on such a restricted number of days of holidays. This was not actually an issue for them. They could now travel for longer if they needed to. So having to come for an extra 5 days of quarantine wasn't as big a deal as it would have been if you had said, well, we need you to come for 5 more days 2 years ago. It would have been impossible. So we were fortunate in that regard because our biggest single country of patient origin is the USA, and their restrictions didn't actually apply to us in Barbados. Their patients could travel readily. They were obviously able to get the vaccine very early. And, then really for the last while, the vast majority of our patients are vaccinated.
Okay. And your view on the next, in terms of fertility travel specifically, the next 3 to 5 years, growth in the market or about where we are now? How do you see it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can already project that, significant growth in 2022 and is what we expect to see. I think that some of the things that we've seen in the trend that what COVID sort of shook everything up. And I think that some of that landscape will stay the same. So I do think that companies are potentially going to realize that people can work remotely. And I think that could only have a positive impact on patients choosing to travel for health reasons and fertility reasons. So I think fertility travel, if you like, can potentially grow because of that. Certainly I don't see that the pandemic we know at some point is going to end and become endemic, and then eventually hopefully we're all vaccinated and we're fine. But as I said, given the stability and that sort of growth that we've seen and that, the situation right now, we see a stronger first quarter than ever before for the clinic in 2022.
Okay. Eleonora, same view for Repro Clinic, future looking bright?
So it's not as before the pandemic, but we saw that once, for example, now it seems that the pandemic, COVID, it's something normal. So people start again to looking for treatments. At the beginning, there was a fear, a general fear to travel, but now also when after March, when we start opening again, also the borders of some country open again, patients could travel with special documents, etc. We can say that it seems that is coming to the normality. And what we have seen is, as a panelist talked before, is that a lot of patients are looking for egg freezing. We saw a growth on the request of this treatment, and also we had a very interesting webinar with our andrologist, Dr. Ruiz, talking about COVID and the masculine aspects, and also we saw that a lot of male patients looking around to freeze the sperm.
Okay.
So I think that we will reach the normality, because also the patients, before the pandemic, maybe you have the idea that you could control your own life. You decide when to freeze the eggs, when to start treatment. But if a new pandemic comes, all is stopped, all is blocked. So now they prefer to go in time to freeze the eggs or to freeze the sperm. Not only for maybe for the vaccine aspect, but also because they want to prevent, if something happens, they have already the sperm frozen or the eggs frozen.
Okay, thanks, Eleonora. Matej, what's the future looking like for Future Life? You obviously have a large number of clinics, significant view.
Yeah, the future looks very bright. Actually, we also managed to, the pandemic was a great year for us, even if I know that a lot of people were affected. But it was a great year because we discovered that we are able to adapt to any situation. And it was really hard, believe me, when a patient called you from London because she was not allowed to get in the plane. So we had to do really a lot of operations. So we have to arrange the pickup in our clinic in London, or we had to do a lot of improvisation. But at the end, I think it really showed that our model is pressure tested. And I see that the future is also that we will see our patients in their own countries without the hassle of travel, thinking of what documents you need. And it really shows that if you have great partners, that you are able to deliver best treatment for your patients.
Yeah, I find that particularly from the UK and travel from the UK. I went to France briefly a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to Turin in Italy next week for a few days. And it is a complete and utter pain. It's a real barrier to travel. We were going with a group of, usually we would go with 8 people. There are 3 of us going. And that's because of the paperwork and the pre-travel tests and the post-test that you have to book in and the cost. It's 80, 90 pounds, I suppose, in total to get this done. And I think for the UK outbound IVF market, that's a real barrier at the moment. Until those barriers come down, it's just a complete pain. And do your clinics provide the kind of advice and information to help people make that journey? Do you see what I mean? Or are you kind of leaving it to the patients to find out the answers for themselves?
No, we're helping them as we can. And the advantage is that we have clinics in 8 countries. So we know also the local regulations. And it's easy for us to call our colleague in London and find out what is current situation there, because it's changing as well as it's changing in Czech Republic. So that is a huge advantage we have. And I have to say that that's why we increase number of patients in our clinics, because I think that they also see the difference.
Yeah. Dimitris, you've experienced and got knowledge of a great deal of clinics. We were talking in the previous session about, how does a couple choose which clinic is right for them? When it comes to comparing clinics internationally, it's even more of a problem. Different outcome measures, different. What advice, would you give? How can we better inform patients, or how can we improve that?
Let me start by saying initially that I think the pandemic helped in reorganizing, as you said before, the reorganization and restructure of strategies. We did the same. The fact of the pandemic, and I heard different opinions before, was that it closed initially the clinics, then the clinics opened, but the borders were closed. So traveling were prohibited or forbidden, or is still difficult, as you said, Keith. Although in the European Union now you are free to travel. The UK after Brexit makes it more difficult than everybody else.
No comment.
But even the fact that you need to do PLFs for every single country you transit or you go, and you need to not to forget to do it 24 hours before you travel, it is a hassle for everybody. And if you forget and you're not allowed to enter the plane, that's a disaster, particularly if you are a fertility patient. So there is restrictions for travel, although it's starting to to minimize. So what clinics have been doing, and we did it ourselves, is to focus primarily on the local markets if they're able to. So I know many clinics, and we as well as RIDIA, as the provider of refund guarantee, we restructure our company not to focus exclusively on the traveling part, but also to offer programs to in-market patients in the countries where we operate, to balance the losses we had from patients that could not travel. So the clinics did the same, and I agree. I heard earlier panels before, clinics that they moved to other markets because some markets was closed, like the UK and others. I mean, there were clinics that depended on Middle Eastern markets and Asian markets are totally closed for Europe. So they needed to find out sources of patients for the alternative sources of patients. And to an extent now, I see that this is happening, and many clinics are managing to cope with this. Not all of the clinics, but several clinics manage to cope with this, to change markets until the old traditional markets open up. I mean, the UK is bound to open up, and we are expecting already some changes started to happen beginning this month, that for vaccinated travelers is slightly easier now to travel from the UK and to come back to the UK. So more changes, I guess, are going to take place as the pandemic comes to a near end, or more people are vaccinated. So how to attract those patients is, I think that the pandemic teaches us that we need to invest more on technology and communication. I think these are vital. There have been many clinics in the past that focused everything on the face-to-face consultation meeting. They encourage people to come to the clinic before they start doing anything. And so this concept totally ended. So now every clinic focuses on online consultations to start with, focuses on networks of collaborating labs and in different countries, so they can manage to get the fertility test and send results to the clinic. We try to minimize the number of trips and the number of days that the patients need to stay at the clinic. So basically, I'm talking more on European clinics. I know Barbados is slightly different, and they focus mostly on the US market or North American market. But in Europe, mostly clinics are trying to minimize the time of that the patient has to travel, and the times, particularly how many times they need to travel. So there was a need for reorganization and restructuring, particularly in communication and technology. Communication technology, I mean. So find new ways. I know most of the clinics we work with, but even clinics we don't work with yet, have engaged into webinars, presentations online. I mean, all sorts of things that nobody did in the past. So it has been a technological revolution, this pandemic, I think.
Okay.
The fact that we're doing this forum, I remember I was part of the first forum you did in London, Keith. The fact that we're doing this forum completely online is a proof that everything has moved to that prospect. So communication is vital. As it was told by other speakers today earlier. We need a patient-centric approach. It's no good to wait in line for an appointment, to expect days to hear from the clinic about when to see the doctor or when to see. We need to restructure the way clinics communicate with patients. And this is vital, and the technology plays a part of it.
Okay, Matej, you've got clinics in 8 different countries.
Yeah.
The question is often asked is about, okay, patients will choose based on kind of, well, okay, what it costs, but is it going to work? What's the outcome data like? Now, across how can patients compare comparative success rates across all of your clinics? Do you collect data in the same way? Do you measure it in the same way? Do you publish it in the same way?
Yeah, that's what we do. Actually, we harmonize our clinic. Each clinic is different, has a different profile, but that is our philosophy. We have 42 clinics, and each of the clinic is unique. So it has different profile. One of the clinics is maybe more for egg donation patients, but all of the clinics are measured the same way. So there is a transparency between us. We show our results between all of the clinics, and we compare them to future life average. So it means that every clinic sees where the clinic stands in comparison to future life average. And it's a little competition between them because everyone wants to be the best.
Yep.
What do? We have our standards, but if someone is better than these standards, then the others can learn from the clinic. So it is a continuous improvement, and you see people who are really. We, for example, we have 3 clinics in one city. These 3 clinics are doing very well. They do not compete between themselves because there is a lot of patients, but they compete in the service. They need to provide a good service, and also the success rates. This is the KPI we are looking at. It is what we want. We want patients to get pregnant, and we are proud that we have so many brands and so many good people in our group.
Juliet, for Barbados, how do you decide what you publish in terms of success rates to make it comparable to other clinics? So how could I compare, and we'll come to Eleonora next, how do I compare Barbados Fertility Center with Reaper Clinic in Barcelona?
Yeah, so we publish, obviously, clinical pregnancy rates. We are compiling live birth rates. Now, obviously, because we are almost entirely, our patients aren't with us, capturing the live birth rates is a little bit more challenging for us. But, we do, similar to the HFEA or SART, gather our statistics and compile them for comparison, okay? And obviously, in addition to that, Keith, I think going back to a little bit what I heard Demetra say, this recognition that we should be patient-centered care, that's, if you like, been our ethos from the very beginning, that we very much look at an individual patient rather than just simply, you're in this box and therefore that's what we think of you. And that's been our focus in how we communicate with patients, how we try to look at their individual case, and is there anything that we think will better their success rate? Is there anything else we can do? To improve their odds of obviously getting pregnant in that transfer.
Eleonora, in Barcelona, how do you, presumably you're following Matej's lead?
So, well, in Spain, we need to present our data to the Ministry of Health, and it could be also audit those data. So I think in other countries doesn't work like that. So you can see that we can present data, for example, per transfer, per cycle included frozen and the transfer. So you can go from a 62% pregnancy rate per transfer to a 95%, because each clinic presents different data. So what we always say, we try to explain that to the patient, because some patients are just looking around in different clinics. Well, in Barcelona, in Spain, there are a lot of clinics, and they are just asking for a free consultation in different clinics and asking just for all prices or success rates, but it's not dependent only in success rate, because could be presented different data and publish different data from us. So what we want to understand to the patient, to let them know that is not just a number. You have to check also other things. For example, as I told before, we do personalized treatments, customized services. From the beginning, Repoclinic started with holistic approach. So we have different cooperation with fertility coaches. We are now offering for national patients and also for international patients psychological support. We arrange online sessions and presential sessions in the clinic. So I think patient didn't know, well, they just focus on numbers, but it's not only numbers. You have to see also the other services that the clinic could provide you, because I think they need to feel comfortable. So we make in Repoclinic them feel comfortable. We help them with traveling operation. We have to find out a hotel. Also during the COVID, Repoclinic helped the patients, because in Spain, few hotels were open, and also a few flights were available to come to Spain. So we decided to help them with paperwork, and we offer for free a PCR test and also a discount in treatment. So I think they have to evaluate the different services that the clinic could give them, not only numbers from my point of view.
Okay. Dimitris, slightly kind of broader question in terms of how do we make fertility travel more attractive? Where are the kind of service gaps at the moment? What can we do better within this sector, specifically for international patients?
I think the two things that international fertility patients are looking at is, first of all, language. So that they need to know that they could communicate, and many clinics have invested on having coordinators to speak the languages, and having dedicated coordinators is very important. Some big clinics or traditional clinics, they just work with nurses and doctors, and it's very difficult to get through the doctor to manage to communicate. I have experience with patients who failed cycles because there was a miscommunication on how to take the medication, and they were taking medication wrongly. They were taking medications, they were not taking some medication, they were waiting for some guidelines. There was a big confusion because of that lack of communication. So structure a communication system and have the appropriate people who speak the languages, who communicate regularly, is of vital importance, first of all, to attract patients and to retain patients, and to develop a reputation and a word of mouth that you actually able to provide. Because you can have a great clinic, you can have a good lab and a good doctor, but if you don't have the communication skills, you miss, and you may have unpleasant or unsatisfactory patients because of that.
Thanks, Dimitris. Juliet, if you could wave a magic wand today, what would you change? What would you do better? How can we improve what we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that communication, Dimitris, is absolutely a crucial part. And I think communication and cost are the two bigger drivers for someone thinking outside their box and looking to go elsewhere from their home country, and success. You know, the fact is that when they reach out on your website platform or whichever way they find you, it is that, you know, prompt communication, that consistency with whoever handles those emails. In our case, it's our nurse coordinators. And then to set up to that new patient consult, to that process of how they're handled from the point that they do their initial consultation, receive their records, to the point that they come through for IVF. And absolutely, Demetrius, it's not okay that someone messes up their cycle because they didn't understand how to take their medications. You know, these are all things that we have to get right. And for us, I think it's, you know, it comes second nature because this is what we've done from the very beginning. So we do deal with patients around the world, you know, in different timelines. The majority of our patients do speak English, but yes, we do have some patients that, you know, they do need a translator, but in which case it's really important that they have a translator because it's not okay that they don't understand what you've communicated to them.
So why do they choose? Why do your patients choose you? What makes you different? What do you think's your kind of competitive advantage? What's different about you?
I think, Keith, it's a number of different things, and over the years I would have said that the reasons for choice differed according to where they came from.
Yeah.
I think the US, it is costs, it's JCI accreditation, it's the fact that you know,
JCI accreditation. Quick question following up on that. Do they know what that is? Does that make any difference?
Americans, absolutely, they know what that is.
Americans do. Okay,
yeah,
carry on.
Absolutely. It may not make as much of a difference to people elsewhere, but it is a huge importance for American patients. And I think at the end of basically, you know, the fact is that when they reach out, they get a response and they feel that they're not a number. Because a lot of the American clinics are much bigger conveyor belt models, and obviously the individual patient-centered care. You know, in other countries, so for example, in the UK, I think as we've watched that, our biggest, you know, trend there will be obviously couples who need black donor eggs, because for the Caribbean, obviously we're going to have a much better availability for that. Yeah. And it will be less about necessarily cost and availability of service. Canada can be either. So Canada, there is a lot of rural Canada where they may not have a local clinic, so it is availability of service. Cost, we tend to be more on par with Canada in terms of cost, so it's not they're saving money, it's just that maybe it's access to care. And you know, in COVID that almost got worse for our Canadian patients. Yes, they also were troubled by entry requirements and being able to travel simply and the necessary quarantines for them. But once that reopened, they certainly were very quick to be back coming to Barbados as well.
Okay.
And I think once they've had that communication, they really do, you know that they probably reach out to multiple clinics in the world at the same time. And it is to make sure that, you know, you communicate back and they quickly make their decision.
Yeah. Eleonora, what can we do better? What could you wave your magic wand tomorrow? How would you change the way that you market or deliver your service? What would make it more attractive to patients?
So I think, as I told before, not all the clinic could offer psychological support, because what we want to underline is that in Repro Clinic, the experience of the patient is very important, because as in the panelists before, we're talking about a clinic that was a patient crying on the waiting room and nobody was here. So I think that they need to feel comfortable, to feel that they are not alone. You can imagine that they are coming from another country, in Spain, maybe no idea about the language, etc. So we saw that they may need to be accompanied, to feel that someone is with them, that if there are any problem, you are there. If they want to meet a psychologist or fertility coaching, I want to underline that in Repro Clinic we are organizing now special sessions for patients in treatment in French and in English, and also in Spanish with our psychologists, because we want to improve well the physical, but also the mental, the emotional health. So I think this is a good point. Not all the clinic maybe could provide this kind of services, and also it's good because as the online networks, the online communications arrive to stay, they can stay home in their sofa and they could talk with the psychologist or the fertility coaching, because sometimes they arrive at the clinic alone. Nobody knows that they are doing a fertility treatment. So I think that's the most important thing, that we have done is to assist them from the psychologist's point of view.
Okay, thanks, Eleonora. Okay, I'm just come to the end of that session. I was going to try and squeeze one more question in, but we will leave it there. I'd just like to say thanks to our panelists, both in this session and the previous 3 sessions today. Many thanks to our sponsors, Houlihan, Loki and Pharmaceuge, for supporting this event. We dearly hope that next year we will be back face to face, probably in London. But that is the hope for next year's Fertility Forum. You can catch up on any sessions from this webinar. We'll be making those available online, and please share with your colleagues the availability of those if they want to see what you've had to say. So once again, thank you to our sponsors. Many thanks to our panelists throughout the day. And I look forward to meeting you face to face, hopefully not in the too far distance future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.